My mother's favorite coffee mug was on the porch railing. That was the first thing I noticed when I turned onto the gravel drive. She never left it outside. In 27 years of knowing her habits, I had never once seen that mug anywhere but the kitchen sink or the drying rack beside it. It was a small thing. But small things are how I make my living. And small things are how people tell you something is wrong when they don't have the words. The second thing I noticed was my brother's truck. And beside it, a white sedan I had never seen before with a magnetic sign on the driver's door that read Holcomb Property Solutions in blue lettering. My father had called me 40 minutes earlier. His voice had that particular steadiness he used when he was working hard to keep something from shaking loose. Nora, can you drive out today? Marcus is here. He brought people. He didn't say what kind of people. He didn't need to. My name is Nora. I'm 31. I'm a title examiner and compliance analyst for a mid-size real estate law firm in Charlotte, which means I spend my days reading documents most people wouldn't touch voluntarily and finding the places where language has been arranged to look protective while doing the opposite. I can tell you in 11 seconds whether a deed restriction is enforceable. I can spot a fraudulent lien from across a conference table. I know what a quitclaim deed looks like when someone has been pressured into signing one because I have seen it 40 times, and every single time, the person holding the pen didn't fully understand what they were giving away. I learned this work the way most people learn the thing that defines them, by watching it happen to someone I loved and deciding it would never happen again. My mother was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 15. The relapsing remitting kind, which sounds manageable until you live inside the remitting part and realize it's just the space between losses. She went from running the front desk at a veterinary clinic to needing a cane in 3 years. By the time I graduated college, she was using a wheelchair on bad days and pretending she wasn't on the days in between. My father never once treated her condition as an inconvenience. He treated it as his second career. He learned to cook because she couldn't stand at the stove safely. He modified their bathroom himself, badly at first, then better as he watched YouTube tutorials at midnight and tried again. He drove her to every appointment in Raleigh, 90 minutes each way, and sat in the waiting room with a paperback novel he never finished because he spent the whole time watching the door. They never complained. That was the thing about my parents. They absorbed difficulty the way the ground absorbs rain, quietly, completely, without asking anyone to notice. So I noticed for them. I started saving at 22, my first year at the firm. Not aggressively, just consistently, the way you build anything that has to last. I put aside 11% of every paycheck into a separate account I never touched. When I got promoted to senior analyst at 27, I bumped it to 16. By the time I was 29, I had $94,000 in that account and a very clear picture of what I wanted to do with it. The Farmhouse came onto the market on a Tuesday in March, a 3-bedroom on 2.5 acres in Ashe County, up in the mountains near West Jefferson. The listing said estate sale, price to move, which in my line of work means someone died and the heirs want cash, not sentiment. The bones were solid. The roof needed replacing. The porch was sagging on the south side, and the kitchen hadn't been updated since the Clinton administration. But the property sat on a gentle slope with a view of the Blue Ridge that made your chest hurt if you looked at it long enough, and there was a level stretch of yard between the house and the tree line that I could already see my father mowing on a Saturday morning, slowly, the way he did everything now, but moving. I made an offer that afternoon. The heirs accepted by Thursday. Then I did what I do. I pulled the title history myself. I ran a full lien search, verified the boundary survey, confirmed the septic certification, and ordered a structural inspection from a firm I trusted. When the inspection came back clean, I hired a contractor my firm had used on 3 commercial rehabs and told him exactly what I needed. Single story. Wide hallways. A roll-in shower with a bench seat. A kitchen with pull-out shelves and counter heights that worked whether my mother was standing with her cane or seated in her chair. A porch with no steps, just a gentle ramp disguised as a landscaping feature, so it didn't look like a medical accommodation. It looked like a design choice. The renovation took 8 months. I drove up every other weekend to check progress, 3 hours each way from Charlotte, usually leaving after work on Friday and getting back Sunday night with enough time to iron a shirt for Monday. I financed the entire project myself. The purchase, the renovation, the furnishings, the well pump replacement, the new septic field, all of it. $273,000 when I added the final number. I set up a dedicated escrow account and prepaid property taxes for 12 years. I arranged for a local handyman service to handle seasonal maintenance on a retainer. I stocked the pantry with my mother's favorite brands, including the high-end olive oil she always admired in stores but never bought because she said it was foolish to spend that much on something you cook with. When everything was finished, when the floors were sealed and the porch railing was steady and the blue ridge sat perfectly framed in the kitchen window like a painting someone had hung there on purpose, I placed the deed into an irrevocable trust. My parents were named as the sole lifetime beneficiaries. I was named as trustee. The trust language was airtight because I had drafted the first version myself and then paid our firm's senior partner 4 billable hours to make it bulletproof. No provision for sale, rental, sublease, or transfer of any kind without the trustee's written consent. Lifetime occupancy, exclusive and unconditional. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like control, but I had spent 9 years reading documents where the wrong structure cost people their homes, and I was not going to let my parents' safety depend on anyone's good intentions, including my own. The trust existed so that even if something happened to me, even if I lost my judgment or my health or my mind, the house would still be theirs and no one could touch it. I told my parents on their 35th wedding anniversary. I drove them up the mountain on a Saturday morning in October, told them we were going to a craft fair in Boone, and turned onto a gravel road they had never seen. When the farmhouse came into view, white clapboard against the copper and red of the autumn tree line, I pulled over and stopped. "What is this?" my mother said. "It's yours," I said. "Both of your names are in the trust. It's paid for. The taxes are covered for 12 years. Nobody can take it from you." My father didn't speak. He opened the car door and stood in the driveway and looked at the house for a very long time. Then he walked to the porch, up the ramp, and put both hands on the railing. My mother reached over from the passenger seat and squeezed my arm so hard it left a mark. "The kitchen has pull-out shelves," I said, because I didn't know what else to say. She laughed. It was the kind of laugh that has water in it. That first weekend was the best 3 days of my adult life. We ate dinner on the porch and watched the mountains turn purple in the evening light. My father figured out the shower bench and declared it the finest invention since the recliner. My mother opened every cabinet and every drawer and touched every surface like she was memorizing it with her hands. On Sunday night, when I was packing my bag to drive back, my father stood in the doorway of the guest room and said, "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up." "You're not," I said. "It's real. It's yours." He nodded once. "You're a good kid, Nora." That sentence cost him something. I could hear it. He was not a man who said things like that easily. Not because he didn't feel them, but because feeling them too much made his voice unreliable. And he had spent 16 years working very hard to keep his voice steady. I drove back to Charlotte feeling the specific piece of something done right. I should have known that feeling never lasts. My brother found out 9 days later. My mother told him during a video call. She couldn't help it. She was happy, and happy was not something she had practiced hiding. Marcus is 3 years older than me. He works in pharmaceutical sales, which means he is professionally charming and constitutionally unable to hear the word no as anything other than a negotiation tactic. He is not malicious in the way that gets reported. He is opportunistic in the way that gets tolerated, which is worse, because it means he never crosses the line far enough for anyone to call it what it is. His wife, Jenna, is the engine behind most of his worse ideas. She has an MBA she references in every conversation and a habit of describing family relationships in terms I associate with quarterly earnings calls. She once told my mother that emotional bandwidth is a finite resource when my mother asked if they could visit more often. My mother never asked again. Marcus called me the evening he found out. His voice had the warm, expansive quality it gets when he wants something. "Nora, this is incredible. I had no idea you were working on something like this. Mom is over the moon." "Thanks," I said. "It's been a long project. Listen, Jenna and I would love to come see it this weekend. Bring the kids, make a thing of it. Is that cool?" "It's Mom and Dad's house," I said. "They decide who visits." Of course. I just wanted to loop you in." He used the phrase loop you in, as though we were colleagues on a project, rather than siblings discussing our parents' home. I noted it and said nothing. They visited that Saturday. I was in Charlotte finishing a title dispute that couldn't wait, so I wasn't there. My mother called me that evening. Her voice had the careful, managed quality I recognized from years of her trying to describe a bad doctor's appointment without worrying me. "Marcus and Jenna walked the whole property," she said. Jenna measured the bedrooms with her phone. She said something about comparable listings in the area. I didn't really understand what she meant. I understood exactly what she meant. "Marcus asked your father about the well capacity and whether the septic could handle higher usage. He said he was just curious." He was not just curious. "Nora, should I be worried?" "No," I said. I built this so you wouldn't have to worry. Let me handle it. I should have driven up that night. Instead, I told myself it was just a visit. I told myself Marcus was just being Marcus. All talk and no follow-through. I told myself the trust was solid and that there was nothing they could do, even if they wanted to. I told myself to stop treating every family interaction like a title defect waiting to surface. I was wrong about all of it. My father's text arrived on a Wednesday morning at 6:47 a.m. He was not a man who texted before 7 unless something was wrong. Nora, Marcus and Jenna came back last night. They have paperwork. They want us to sign something. Your mother is upset. Please call when you can. I called immediately. My mother answered. She had been crying. She told me Marcus and Jenna had arrived unannounced the previous evening with a folder of documents and a rehearsed presentation about maximizing the property's potential. They wanted to convert the farmhouse into a short-term vacation rental. They had already contacted a property management company. They had a projected revenue sheet showing $52,000 a year in peak season bookings. They wanted my parents to sign a family agreement granting Marcus and Jenna operational authority over the property. He said it was just sitting there losing value, my mother said. He said we're only using it part of the month and that's wasted equity. Jenna showed us numbers on her laptop. She had photos of the house on a slide. Our house, Nora, on a presentation slide. Did you sign anything? No. Your father told them to leave. Marcus said we were being emotional. Where are they now? They left around midnight. Marcus said he'd be back this weekend to continue the conversation. There is no conversation, I said. I'm coming up tomorrow. I left Charlotte at 5 in the morning and arrived at the farmhouse by 8. My parents were at the kitchen table. My father had dark circles under his eyes that told me he hadn't slept. My mother's hands were wrapped around her coffee mug, the same mug that would end up on the porch railing a month later. The mug I never saw out of place until everything was, "Tell me exactly what they said," I said. Every detail. My father laid it out methodically. Marcus and Jenna had arrived at 7 p.m. with a printed packet that included rental projections, a market analysis of vacation properties in Ashe County, a draft family management agreement, and a proposed renovation plan that would convert the guest bedroom into a second rentable unit. He talked about it like it was already decided, my father said. Like he was informing us of a plan, not asking permission. What did the agreement say? It gave Marcus and Jenna management authority over the property for a term of 5 years with automatic renewal, 60% of rental income to them as management fee, 20% to us, 20% to a maintenance fund they would control. I closed my eyes for a moment. Then I opened them. Did they leave a copy? My father slid the folder across the table. I read the document in 4 minutes. It was not drafted by an attorney. It was drafted by someone who had watched too many real estate investing videos and assembled language from template sites without understanding what half of it meant. But buried in page 3 was a clause that made my vision sharpen. Signatories agree that all decisions regarding property use, including but not limited to rental activity, guest management, renovation, and marketing, shall be made at the sole discretion of the managing party. If my parents had signed this, Marcus and Jenna would have had de facto control of the property. And because the document didn't reference the existing trust at all, they were either ignorant of the trust's terms or deliberately trying to create a competing claim. I suspected the latter, because there was something else in the folder. A printed email from a local real estate agent to Marcus, dated 2 weeks earlier, with the subject line, Comp Analysis, West Jefferson STR Market. The email referenced your family's property on Elk Creek Road and included estimated nightly rates, occupancy projections, and a note that said, "Happy to list whenever you're ready. Just need owner authorization on file." Marcus had been planning this for at least 2 weeks before the visit. I spent the rest of that day making calls. I called our firm's senior partner and described the situation. I called the Ashe County Register of Deeds to confirm the trust recording was current and accessible. I called the real estate agent, whose name was on the email, and informed her, politely and precisely, that the property on Elk Creek Road was held in an irrevocable trust, that Marcus had no ownership, interest, or authority of any kind, and that any listing created using the property's address or photographs would constitute misrepresentation and would be reported to the North Carolina Real Estate Commission. The agent was quiet for a long moment. He told me it was a family property and he was handling things for his parents, she said. He told you something that is not true, I said. I am the trustee. My parents are the sole beneficiaries. Marcus is neither. I'll pull the file, she said. I'm sorry about this. Marcus arrived Saturday at noon. Jenna was with him. Their 2 boys, 7 and 9, ran immediately to the yard and started throwing sticks at each other. Marcus came through the front door with the confidence of someone who believed the previous visit was a rough draft, and this one would be the final version. He saw me at the kitchen table and paused for one beat, then smiled. "Nora, didn't know you'd be here. Perfect timing, actually." "Sit down," I said. He sat. Jenna stood behind him with her arms crossed. My parents were on the porch. I had asked them to give me 15 minutes. I opened my own folder. "First document," I said. "The recorded deed of trust for this property, filed with the Ashe County Register of Deeds 14 months ago. This property is held in an irrevocable trust. Mom and Dad are the sole lifetime beneficiaries. I am the trustee. The trust language grants them exclusive, unconditional right of occupancy. There is no provision for rental, sublease, commercial use, or transfer of management authority to any third party." Marcus leaned back. "Nora, we're not trying to take anything. We're trying to help." "Second document," I said. "A written legal opinion from my firm's senior real estate partner confirming the trust is properly structured, validly recorded, and not subject to challenge by any non-beneficiary." Non-beneficiary means everyone in this room except Mom and Dad. Jenna shifted her weight. "Trust language can be contested." "It can," I said. "If you'd like to retain an attorney and spend $30,000 to $50,000 litigating an irrevocable trust that was drafted by a board-certified real estate specialist and filed with full compliance, you're welcome to. I'll save you the suspense on how that ends." I placed the third document on the table. "This is a screenshot of an email from a real estate agent in West Jefferson, sent to you, Marcus, 2 weeks before you showed up here with your presentation. In it, you represented yourself as having authority over this property. You do not. That is material misrepresentation. I have already contacted the agent and corrected the record." Marcus's smile had gone thin. "I was exploring options. There's nothing wrong with that." "Fourth document," I said. "This is the family management agreement you asked our parents to sign." I held it up. "Page 3, Section 4. This clause would grant you sole discretion over all property decisions, including rental and renovation. If they had signed this, you would have had operational control of a property you don't own, didn't pay for, and have no legal interest in. You presented this to a 70-year-old man with a disabled wife at 7 o'clock at night without an attorney present. The kitchen was very quiet. That is, at minimum, an attempt to obtain property rights through misrepresentation. In North Carolina, presenting a legal document to a vulnerable adult with the intent to gain control of their assets meets the statutory definition of financial exploitation of an elder adult under G.S. 14 to 112.2. I'm not saying you intended that. I am saying that is what it looks like, and I am saying that is what it will look like to a judge if this goes any further." Marcus stood up. His chair scraped the floor. "You're threatening us?" "I'm informing you," I said. "The way I inform anyone who doesn't read the documents before they sign them. Sit down." "I'm not finished." He sat. "Last document. This is a cease and desist letter addressed to both of you. It formally notifies you that any further attempt to list, market, lease, solicit tenants for, or otherwise represent this property as available for any use other than our parents' private residence will result in immediate legal action. My firm's senior partner is copied. He is expecting my call this afternoon. Any future communication about this property should be directed through his office." I slid the letter across the table. Jenna picked it up and read it. Her face went through several things at once. "This is unbelievable," Marcus said. "You built this house and now you're using it as leverage. This is about control. It's always been about control with you." I looked at him for a long time. Long enough that the silence became its own kind of statement. "I built this house," I said, "because 16 years ago, Mom got a diagnosis that changed everything, and Dad reorganized his entire life around taking care of her without ever once asking anyone to notice. I built it because they earned a place where the shower works for her, and the porch has no steps, and the kitchen is designed around what she can reach on a hard day. I built it because they spent 35 years making everyone else comfortable, and nobody ever thought to return the favor." I paused. "I didn't build it so you could turn it into a listing." Marcus didn't answer. Jenna folded the cease and desist and put it in her purse with the efficient motions of someone who had already moved on to calculating next steps. "I need you to leave," I said. "You can come back when Mom and Dad invite you. And when you do come back, you come as guests. Not as managers, not as consultants, not as investors. Guests." What followed was not quiet. Marcus made 2 phone calls from the driveway, pacing beside his truck with the sharp, clipped voice he used when he was performing competence for someone else's benefit. Jenna loaded the boys into the car without looking at the house. When they finally pulled out, the gravel popped under their tires like something letting go. My mother came inside. She stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at the folder on the table and then at me. "Is it over?" "The legal part is handled," I said. "I can't promise he won't be difficult, but I can promise he can't touch this house." My father came in from the porch. He moved slowly to the table and sat down in the same chair where Marcus had sat, and the contrast between the two of them in that chair made something tighten in my chest. "He measured the porch," my father said quietly. "The first time they visited. I watched him do it. He walked the length of it, counting his steps. I thought he was just impressed." "I know, Dad. I should have told you. You shouldn't have had to." The social media campaign started 5 days later. Jenna posted first. A long, carefully worded paragraph about family members who use generosity as a weapon and gifts that come with invisible strings. She didn't use names. She didn't need to. 2 of my mother's friends from church sent worried texts within hours. Marcus followed with a post about being shut out of family decisions by people who think having a law degree makes them right. He does not have a clear understanding of what I actually do, but the sentiment landed with his audience. I sent one email. It was addressed to Marcus and Jenna, with my firm's senior partner copied. It stated without elaboration that any public statement I could verify as referencing me, my parents, or the property would be treated as defamation if materially false, and as tortious interference if it caused demonstrable harm to any protected interest under the trust. It requested that all future communication be directed through my firm. The posts were deleted within 36 hours. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday evening, my father called. His voice had the controlled urgency I had heard once before. The morning everything started. "There's a couple at the door," he said. "They say they have a reservation." They showed me a confirmation on their phone. "It has our address on it." I went cold. "Dad, go inside and lock the door. Don't let them in. Don't sign anything." I pulled up the security cameras I had installed the previous weekend, motion-activated units at the driveway, the front porch, and the back of the property, all feeding to an app on my phone. I could see a sedan parked in the driveway and 2 people standing on the porch with luggage. I called the Ashe County Sheriff's non-emergency line and reported individuals presenting fraudulent rental documentation at a private residence occupied by a vulnerable adult. Then I texted Marcus a screenshot from the porch camera with one message. "I am watching this live. The trust is on file with the county. I suggest your guests leave before the deputy arrives." His reply came in 6 minutes. "Wrong address. Honest mistake. I'll handle it." The couple was gone before the deputy reached Elk Creek Road. I drove up that Friday evening with a locksmith. We replaced every exterior lock with keypad deadbolts, so my parents wouldn't have to fumble with keys. My mother's fine motor control was unreliable on cold days, and I programmed the codes on the kitchen tablet beside the camera feeds. I walked my father through the system twice. He watched the camera angles cycle on the screen with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You know what I keep thinking about?" he said. "What?" "How much of my life I spent trying to be easy, trying not to take up space, not asking for too much, making sure nobody had to go out of their way." He was quiet. I never once thought I was allowed to have something and say, "This is mine, and you don't get to touch it." "You're allowed," I said. "I know that now." He smiled, and it was the smile I remembered from before my mother's diagnosis. Before the cane, before the wheelchair, on bad days. Open and unguarded, and belonging entirely to him. Marcus sent one email a month later. Subject line, "Can we talk?" 2 sentences. An acknowledgement that things had gotten out of hand. A request to revisit things when everyone had cooled down. I read it once. I moved it to a folder. I haven't replied. Jenna has not contacted me at all, which I take as either strategy or relief. I drove up to the farmhouse last Sunday for no particular reason. No emergency, no legal issue, no task. Just a bag of groceries and a thermos of good coffee, which had become my way of saying I just wanted to see you without having to say it. My mother was in the kitchen, reorganizing the spice drawer. She does this roughly once a week, not because it needs it, but because the act of opening and closing and arranging small things in a space that belongs to her brings her a satisfaction. I don't think she knew she was missing until she had it. My father was on the porch. He had set up a bird feeder the previous month, one of those cedar ones with the copper roof, and it had attracted a pair of bluebirds who had taken up residence in the oak tree at the edge of the yard. He watched them the way he used to watch baseball, with complete attention and occasional quiet commentary. "The male chases the female around the feeder for about 30 seconds, he said when I sat down. Then they both eat like nothing happened. Every single time. I watched the bluebirds. My mother came out with her coffee, moving carefully with the cane, and settled into the chair beside me. The three of us sat there on the porch my contractor built without steps, looking out at the Blue Ridge going amber in the late afternoon light, and nobody said anything for a long time. There was nothing that needed saying. What I understand now, sitting on that porch in the October light, is that I spent most of my 20s believing love meant absorption. That caring for someone meant folding yourself around their needs so completely that you forgot you had edges. That if you set a limit, you were selfish. That if you protected something, you were controlling. That the correct posture for a good daughter was open hands and endless flexibility, and a willingness to let anyone walk through any door because keeping it closed meant you didn't love enough. I don't believe that anymore. I can love my parents completely and still build a legal structure that keeps their home safe from the people who see it as a revenue stream. I can love my brother and still hand him a cease and desist across the kitchen table our mother picked out herself. I can want my family to be whole and still hold the boundary that makes wholeness possible. A boundary is not a wall. It doesn't shut people out. It's the frame that keeps the house standing. It's the foundation that lets the porch hold weight. It's the reason my mother can open her kitchen drawers at her own pace and exhale, and my father can sit on a porch he doesn't have to share with strangers and watch bluebirds eat together in the last light of the day. I didn't build that farmhouse to own something. I built it because there was a version of my parents' life I could see clearly. A version where they had somewhere soft and safe and entirely theirs. And I had the ability to make it real. Nothing about love means leaving what you built unprotected. And nothing about protecting what you built means you've stopped loving. If you've ever been the person who handled everything and then had to stand between what you built and the people who wanted to take it apart, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because holding the line is not the same as losing the family. Sometimes it's the only thing that keeps what matters most standing.